So I decided to make a video. This is basically a response to my previous video about XTTS RVC pipeline versus Tortoise TTS. And there was quite a few people on here that were asking to see a tutorial on how to install the XTTS that I used in the video. So I figured I would go through the process of how to install it and also kind of explain basically how to go about installing any kind of repo for that matter, and troubleshooting anything, errors and stuff you might come across. So I've created a little step-by-step installation text here that I've got on Notepad. And basically we're going to go over the first steps to installing any repo, and that is setting up a development environment by installing the required software and tools. So if you don't have the right software and tools on your system, you can't just install a repo and expect it to work. It doesn't work that way. You have to set up a development environment first. So the first thing we're going to want to do is install Git for being able to download the repo and using the command lines for Git. I also recommend that you install Git Desktop. It just makes it easier because it gives Git a user interface, and you don't have to memorize all these Git commands and stuff like that, even though the Git commands are still useful. So you'll download it for your appropriate version, whether you're on Macintosh, Windows, etc. Download the latest version of Git. And then we're going to move on to Visual Studio. So all you really need is the Community Edition. You don't need the Professional or Enterprise to be able to use a lot of these open source projects. So download the Community Edition, and you will get an installer. So if I look here at my add remove programs and then Visual Studio, you can go down to where you installed your Visual Studio Community, and you can modify it at any time that you want. So you're going to want to install the Visual Studio Community, and when you open up the installer, you should get something like, so you're going to want to install the build tools 2022, and you're also going to want to install the Visual Community 2022. So I'm just going to click modify here, and then when you go about installing it, you're going to click these options. You're going to click desktop development with C++ and .NET desktop build tools, and you can check Visual Studio extension development as well. And you're just going to check whatever applies to you, or whatever program you're trying to operate with. You're going to make sure that you have these pre-installed so that it has the requirements that it needs in order to be able to work correctly. And also the same thing with the Visual Studio Community. Go in here and you just install what I have checked off here, which is Python development and Node.js. You don't necessarily need Node.js unless you're going to work with Node.js, but you never know. There might be something you come across in the future that requires Node.js. And .NET desktop development, Windows application development, and of course desktop development with C++. And down here I've also got game development, because I also am working on my own game right now too. And that's basically it. Once you got all that checked off, you can see here on the side all the different things they're checked off. You can install it and then move on from there. After you've got all the requirements for Visual Studios and the build tools installed, we will move on to the NVIDIA CUDa Toolkit. And basically we're going to click download now. And for this specific version, or this specific repo, it seems to use the CUDa 11.11.18. So it's 11.8, I believe. So what we're going to look for here is go into the archive, previous CUDa releases, and then we're going to look down here until we find the one that is 11.8. So this is the specific version that this person used when creating their repo. It's best to have the latest version. I'm not sure if it matters if you have the older version or not, but if you want to use the specific version of CUDa that they used in this project, you're going to download this version here, and you're also going to want to download CUDdn. So CUDdn, we're going to go here and just download the library, and then for Windows or Linux, whichever you're using, and you can just download the latest version and basically install it as well. And you can also look at the previous releases, the same as with the CUDa Toolkit. Now, this is one of the main things, you're gonna wanna make sure that you have Python installed. So this guy does not directly mention what version of Python he is using for this project. And nowhere in this, or in this README file, which is right here, basically, is it mentioned that he is using a specific version of Python. So he's leaving us in the dark about some of the things that need to be done. He's also leaving you in the dark about all of this as well. He's not really telling you that you need to install the CUDa Toolkit, the CUDdn, and all that stuff in order to be able to utilize CUDa in the first place. So you have to have these things installed as well in order to be able to utilize this when you install the CUDa version of Torch, which will utilize your GPU in order to do the inferences when it creates your voice. So I figured out that it was version 3.9. That was the closest I could figure out that he was using. So when you go to download Python, make sure you click Python 3.9 and install it. And also we'll move on to the next step after that is installed. So step 2, installing the repo. Set up the correct Python environment version using Python -m space venv. You may think, okay, why is venv twice? Because this is telling it that you're setting up the environment, and this is the name of the environment. So let's say, for example, that you've got multiple environments installed. This is my previous build of it, but I'm going to show you how to go about installing the repo. And again, you have to make sure that you have Git installed in order for this command line to work. If you do not have Git installed and you try to enter this command, it's not going to work. So just giving you a fair warning there. So if it doesn't work, then you probably didn't install Git. I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this test. And then I'm going to enter into the folder here. And if you're on Windows 11, of course, you can just right-click any blank space inside of the folder and open in Terminal. If you're not on Windows 11, you're going to have to make sure that command prompt navigates to the specific folder that you're installing the repo. But you can see here it has the path to the folder that I am currently inside of. And now what we want to do is come back here, and you can see he's got it set up here, git clone, and this is the link to the repository, basically up here at the top. You can also click right here, and it shows the link to the repository itself. But you want to type git clone and then the link to the repository that you are trying to clone. So I want to type that in. I'm just going to paste it. I'm going to press enter, and now it's cloned his repository. So all these files here are now inside of my test folder. Now you can do it that way, or you can do this. You can just click on it right here and click download zip. And when you download the zip file, it will be the same thing that I just did, and it'll be inside that zip file. So if I save it and open it up, here it is. This is the same repository. So git clone just makes it to where you can use the command and clone it that way. And it also makes it to where if you make your own repositories or if you want to branch out from somebody else's repository, you can send updates directly to your repos. Now, after we've done all that, we're going to go back into the XTTS RVC UI folder, and we're going to set up the environment. So that's the next step. So basically what you want to do is when you're inside this folder, you're going to open it up in command prompt like this. And if you only installed the version Python 3.9, then all you need to do is enter this command into your console, and it will automatically, if you press enter, it will create the environment for you for Python 3.9, and the folder, the name of the environment folder will be this right here, ENV. Take note of that because it's important what you name this folder, because the way he set up this project is that if you look in his git ignore files, which is files that are not uploaded to his repository, this is what he called his environment, VENV. And you notice that he's ignoring all these folders, RVCs, models, even the catch folders, the cache, and the .wav files. So none of these are being, anytime he updates his repository locally on his PC, these files are being completely ignored. And that's why they're not a part of the repository. So he doesn't have all the libraries and everything, the Python version, all that stuff. It is not inside of his repo. You're going to have to download that all yourself. And the reason he does that probably is because it's a lot of stuff. Okay, it's going to be a couple of gigabytes worth of things that you'll have to download. So another way to, let's say you've got multiple versions of Python. If you want to install a specific version of an environment for Python, you're going to look at your Python versions. So right now you can see all the different versions that I have of Python. I'm going to go into my 3.9 version here, and I'm just going to right click the executable file here, and I'm just going to click copy as path. And now in the console, I'm going to change this right here line to this here, which I needed to do it manually here. So let me delete this Python and there. Now, if you don't do that and you don't use this specific version, and you go to install any of his requirements, they're probably not going to work. So unless you only have Python version 3.9, do not install it the way I had showed before, or install it the way I had showed it before. I mean, if you have multiple versions of Python, make sure that you point to the specific version of Python that you want to use for this environment, and then just press enter, and it should automatically create the environment. And you see, it didn't really give me a confirmation or anything, but in order to confirm that it did create the environment, you will see a new folder here now that says ENV. And you can go into this folder directly, and you can go directly to the scripts folder, right? And if you notice in his README, the one that's included, I believe, with the repo itself, in his README file here, he has pip install requirements, right? And then he also says pip install Torch and Torch audio, right? But he doesn't tell you exactly what you should be doing, right, in order to install these things. So he's assuming that you already have knowledge about how to use Git and Python and all that stuff. He's not really telling you exactly what you were supposed to do. And he also didn't tell you all of the things that you needed to have pre-installed in order for this to work. So the next step that we're going to have to take here is going into the VNV. And now first, before you do that, make sure you copy this file here, the requirements.txt, and now go into the environment, scripts, and then paste the requirements.txt in here, okay? And now the next step will be to install the requirements, pip install requirements. Now you can't just click on the activate.bat because that won't work. In order to activate the environment, you're going to open up in terminal within the script folder of the environment, right? So see, I am in the scripts folder, and now I'm going to type activate, and now I'm directly inside of the environment. Now that I'm directly inside of the environment, I can use the command to pip install requirements. So I'm going to try to run this command, pip install requirements, and you can see here this is just all the required libraries that the app is going to need in order to run correctly. I'm going to go ahead and run the requirements. I'm going to do pip install requirements, and also make sure that you are still inside of your environment. It should say something like that in front of the path to your scripts folder. And you see it's going to start downloading the required files. Hopefully it goes off without a hitch. You see here, we had a few errors while installing it, but other than that, though, it seems like everything installed the way it should. And now we need to install the CUDa version. So if you're going to use a CUDa compatible card, usually an NVIDIA card, I don't think that AMD cards have CUDa support. You can try installing this and see how that goes. Recommend use. Yeah. So it successfully installed it. And of course, it's giving us an error. We don't got to worry too much about that as long as it works. So it says that it's incompatible, but who knows? We'll see. So we're going to exit this out, go back to our main directory here, and we're going to try to launch it and see what happens. So we can see here that we got an error. Let's see what's going on with this error. Could not find module. It's looking directly in the Torch audio or one of its dependencies. So it seemed to have had an issue with the Torch audio. So let's look at the different Torch audio versions we've got here. We want the one that is specifically for Python 3.9. We could try installing an earlier version or a later version. So I believe this is the one that we just tried to install. Let's see. This is what we just installed, I believe. Yeah, so let's try this because it looks like this might be the one command that we need to use. So we'll go back into the environment and to scripts and open a terminal again and just type in activate. And now we'll paste this in here and see if this is something that might work better. So we see we're still having an issue where it's saying it's incompatible. So it's saying use feature 2020 resolver, test your packages. We can try that, see if that does anything. So you can see here, it's re-downloading something here. Okay, so now it's saying that the version of pandas is incompatible. So now we're just going to have to do pip install pandas and then make sure to use the 2020 resolver. Says cannot find a version that satisfies requirement. Let's upgrade our pip and then try it again. Should be that, I believe. Now we're upgrading our pip and then we'll try pandas again. We'll just try pip install pandas. Cannot find a version that satisfies requirement. All right then. Well, we'll just ignore that for now and go back and try to run it again. So see, now we're getting an error that has to do with pandas, of course. Why wouldn't it have something to do with pandas? So we're going to have to find the correct version of pandas that's going to work with it. And it says that it's incompatible with NumPy. So if we upgrade NumPy, we might be able to use a compatible version of pandas. So that's the problem right now, is that pandas is incompatible with the version of NumPy that is currently installed. So let's go back to the environment and then open the terminal again, activate. We're going to install pip install NumPy. Requirement already satisfied, packages in. Well, let's look for a specific version of NumPy. So we need NumPy 122.4. I believe that's what it's trying to tell us. So let's find out. Pip install numpy and look in here. We can look at the history and we can see exactly what we need here. So it's saying we need 22.4. Let's go down here and find 22.4, and then we'll just copy this numpy and we'll go back to the environment, paste it in here, and now you're seeing a bunch of incompatible shit. Let's look in the requirements file and make sure, yeah, it's saying numpy 22.0, but there is there's no mention of pandas in the requirements text, but we're getting issues with pandas. So let's just go with what we were going to do in the first place, since we're still getting incompatibility issues. Regardless, we're going to go to numpy 22.4, right? And then we're going to try to rerun the bat file again and see if it works. So now let's see what it's giving us this time. Now it's saying that matplotlib requires numpy 0.23. And if you noticed in the requirements, it was 0.20. So, or I think it was 0.20 or just 22.0. Now it's saying that we need numpy 0.23. So let's try to install numpy 0.23, and let's make sure that that is a valid version of numpy. So we'll go to this one and we'll make sure we'll just copy it that way and go back into the environment and install numpy 23. So now that we've got numpy 23, let's try to run the bat file again. So now it's downloading the model, and we can see that it is running on local URL using Gradio version 4.7.1. And if we hold down Control and click this URL, it doesn't seem to be doing anything. So it's having an issue in the Gradio with the dropdown.py, which is a script inside of the packages. So it has something to do with the Gradio. So we should be able to update Gradio from within the environment. Pip install, and let's just do Gradio, and it says however version 5.1. Let's just do Gradio, and it's saying already satisfied. So let's do equal and put this specific version of Gradio inside. So now it's showing me all the versions, and apparently there wasn't a 5.01. There must be a beta edition required. Yeah, you have to have Python 3.10 in order to install version 5.01. So let's see. The ones that I'm going to be able to install, let's go to the highest version, would be 440. Yeah, but that says 4.7, so that can't be right. Unless I'm missing something here. I'm obviously missing something. Let's see if we can do pip install update. Now, let's try to run this again. So let's go to this. We'll try to click on this URL again. I don't think it's going to work. No, you can see that it's not working yet. So let's go to this specific file here that it's talking about. Site packages Gradio components drop down. Let's go into the environment, lib, site packages, Gradio components, and then drop down .py. And we're just going to open this with Notepad right now. And we're going to look for the specific issue that it's telling us here, which is user warning value passed in gr.dropdown is not in the list of choices. So let's look for this right here, or set allow custom value true. So let's copy this and see if this is in here. So we can see here's allow custom value. How many instances is this? So let's try setting the bool to true. And now save it. Let's X this out. Not that. It's your environment. X this out. and make sure there isn't something else running in the background here. And now let's go back and try to run it again. So see, we're not. So here is another thing that we might need to install. Pip install TensorBoardX. So let's go ahead and go back to our environment and try to install TensorBoardX. And now that we've installed TensorBoardX, let's exit this out, try to start it again. Seems to be that it's still having an issue. So I got past why it was not working when I was clicking the URL, and it was pretty much something simple, but you have to change it within the script itself. It was the actual address that was set for the IP, which was 0000. And apparently, if you just change it to your default local address, it should work just fine. So all you have to do in order to fix that is to go into the application script. So the app.py, you can open it with Notepad++ or Notepad and just find this line here, which is around line 98, and switch it to 127.0.0.1, and that will fix the issue. Since we went through all these steps, now we can actually access the Gradio UI, and you'll want to take note that, okay, you're going to have actual RVC models to put in your RVC folder. So that's another thing you're going to have to do. You're going to have to train your own RVC models that you can put inside of your RVC folder. And also, you're going to have to make little short clips of your voice. They don't have to be very long. They can be like 6 seconds, 9 seconds. They don't have to be long at all. The shorter, actually, the better, because the longer the voice sample, it takes more time for it to do inferencing on it, because it's having to resample that voice every time it does inferencing. So, but that is mainly for using the XTTS. And then if you want to go over it again with RVC, you have to have a RVC model that you've trained. So I'm just going to go ahead and test the model and make sure that it's working. So here's the XTTS result.
This is a test. Please like and sub, thanks.
And here is after
This is
RVC.
a test. Please like and sub, thanks.
So you can see it's a little bit too low a pitch, so we can turn the pitch down a little bit, or actually increase the pitch, and submit again.
This is a test. Please like and sub, thanks.
This is a test. Please like and sub, thanks.
Now it's working. I hope the information I provided helped you out in some way, shape, or form. And also, if you don't want to go through all those steps, I'm going to basically provide a build of this on my Patreon. So if you sign up for my Patreon, you can download this with all the packages and everything pre-installed, and that way you don't have to go through the headache of figuring all this crap out. So I just want to give people that choice. You know, it is open source. It is not my project, but I'm going to provide a build of it so that it's easier for people to basically set it up themselves. So make sure you check the links in the description for all the resources, everything that I used in this video, and make sure you give me a thumbs up, like, subscribe, tell me what you thought about it, and if you need any help with anything else. I'm also going to be adding more stuff to my Patreon. I've been working on my iConvo app here, and I've got a pretty big update for it coming out here pretty soon. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, just stick with me, and eventually I'll put it out there for you guys to see. But thank you all, and take it easy, guys.